Good morning. We're doing a stream today, one day earlier than we usually do. We'll have a link to the chat panel above if anyone wants to join and come up. Today we're going to talk to Christopher Widdows, AKA Steady Eddy. He's a comedian. He's been around since the 90s. He has, from memory, cerebral palsy. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and a little bit of a conversation about his battles on getting onto the NDIS, which took him, from what I've been able to read, quite a few years, longer than it should have taken, which is not unusual for the NDIS. It's everyone knows my views and opinions on the NDIS, but Christopher's not here yet, so you have to excuse him. He is a Queenslander, the state of Pauline Hanson, so we've got to make allowances for him. Been a bit slow, a bit late to the conversation, but I've been a huge fan of Christopher, aka Steady Eddy, since the 90s. One of the funniest comedians that we have in Australia, in my opinion. Haven't seen him around a lot for a while. Maybe his health's declined. I'm not sure. We'll find out when he comes on. But he really broke down a lot of barriers for people with disabilities in the 90s. Doing his comedy routine, he showed the world that people with disabilities do have a sense of humour and can take a joke. So, so if anybody wants to join, please feel free at any time to come up into the panel. Just hit that link that we pinned above the chat box. So today we're gonna have two Chris's. We'll have Christopher Widdows and my support worker Chris, who's doing all the computer work this morning.
I'm just giving everyone a wave. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, just tilt your head to the side. It's light's reflecting. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so still waiting for Christopher Widdows. Come on, Chris. Yeah, typical Queenslander, 4 hours late for a 5-minute appointment. I shouldn't talk though. Originally, my family come up from Gargett, which is just outside of Mackay. They moved to New South Wales during the Second World War. So yeah, probably my family's originally from Queensland. So, but don't hold that against me.
We call it a friendly rivalry. Hopefully, a friendly rivalry, mostly. Do we want to talk about? So we've got a few other interesting streams coming up. So if there's people who have been advertising everything that we're going to be working on, if anyone is interested in joining some of those chats or providing some content, so then that'd be great down the track.
So next year, I'm planning on doing parenting with disabilities or parenting of a child with a disability. I'm going to organise a guest speaker who's been on TV a fair bit, advocating for parents with disabilities, single and two-parent family. Also, we're going to talk about next year the old bugaboo, sex and people with disabilities, and the NDIS yet again. So we've got a few things, and also I'm trying to line up an interview early next year from a person with a disability who is Indigenous, and get their perspectives of living in a remote area as a person with a disability and how they're finding accessing services and the NDIS in really remote areas of Australia. So there are a few things coming up next year, which is in the pipeline. So if anybody has any input on any of those stories I'm going to talk about next year, drop me a line at blindadvocate007@gmail.com, and I can read through it and see what we can do to get you up and be part of the panel. I've also sent Bill Shorten a couple of emails requesting a breakdown of the funding for the NDIS, like how much of the $30 billion goes towards employment for people like support workers, physiotherapists, OTs, and other professionals, how much goes on for home maintenance, yard maintenance, and home improvements, how much goes towards AT. Just get a breakdown, because the general community assume that that $30 billion is actually going to the pockets of people with disabilities. And we all know that's not true. The NDIS is a huge employment environment where there's a lot of employment for support workers and professionals, as well as tradesmen as well. So hopefully I'll get that breakdown in the next couple of weeks from the Bill Shorten. It would be interesting to get him on there on this stream one day, and so he can answer questions from people with disabilities. I know the ABC have done stuff, but they have a select few that go on that show. But it'd be good for the minister to answer questions from the general public, the clients of the NDIS. So, we're still waiting for Christopher.
I think he's just trying to get through into the chat at the moment.
Okay. I think one of the funniest lines I remember from Christopher, I know he walks with a limp, and he said, I was out one day, and he said, I've seen the most beautiful woman I've ever seen my whole life. And he said, I was just looking and thinking, yeah, if she only had a limp, I think that's one of the best lines I've ever heard him say. It was really, really good. Hopefully he'll join us shortly. He may be struggling. I know there's a couple of prompts he has to fill in to get in. So, but like I said, if anyone wants to come up and have a chat with Christopher Widdows, please feel free. If anyone has a topic they want me to talk about or raise one day during a live stream, or you just want to come up for a general chat, you're welcome at any time. You can even talk about something that's not on topic. You might want to come up and talk about something else, and that's quite okay. This is a platform for people with disabilities to express their views and opinions and talk about their life experiences in a safe environment where they're going to be respected and treated with a little bit of dignity, which is not too much to expect. So, I think Christopher Widow, like Steady Eddy, has been around since, I think it was the early 90s. I'm not sure whether I first seen him on Hey Hey It's Saturday or another show. I can't remember. But very, very funny man. Very, very funny. He's it's been going for a long time.
He just dropped me a message. He said that he'll just be a second. He's just trying to get in now.
Okay. I was scrolling through YouTube the other day, and I found this speech from Pauline Hanson on domestic violence. And she raised a statistic. I didn't know that 25% of all domestic violence issues are perpetrated against men by women. And we all know that men are the main perpetrators, but there are cases where men are the victims of domestic violence. So might look into that too one day, domestic violence in the home environment, not just for people with disabilities, but for everyone. I grew up in a very, very violent household. It was a dreadful experience. Scarred me for life. So maybe that could be a topic for next year. I'm not sure. We'll think about it and try and work a few things out and see what we can organise. But yeah, you got anything to add, Chris?
I think he's still got a message from him, but I think he's still trying to get into the system. Sometimes technology does not do exactly what you want it to do. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that.
Yeah. Technology is great when it works, and yeah, it's quite a few times I nearly kicked my laptop out through the window when it wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. Especially when you pay thousands of dollars for something that doesn't work the way you want it to. You can't work out how to use it. I used to be a JAWS user. That's what I started off using back in the late 90s. Couldn't afford the upgrade, so I transferred over to the MacBook because all the upgrades come free with the MacBook. My last MacBook lasted 7-8 years. Then the upgrades got so big it could no longer handle it, so I had to buy a new one. And I think I got that. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you've got your first scammer on your chat comments now. You've got 18xxyz have been trying to put comments through with links to a naughty video. You feel like you've moved to the next level, Jeff, with your streaming. So we've just blocked those comments. Anytime there's any comments through that are inappropriate or anything, we'll try and block those out. But for the most part, we're not going to be blocking content.
Yeah, and that's one of the roles that Chris has, is to block those sorts of comments. And porn bombing, it's been an issue. I go to other people's live streams and go up in their panels and talk. And unless they see your actual face, they won't let you up because of porn bombing. If that happens, you can lose your channel, which I think is unfair. But yeah, you've got to be protected, I suppose. It's one of those things that people with no talent and very little time do, especially the trolls. There are a lot of nasty, vindictive people out there. That's one of the other ones I'm going to talk about next year too, is the scammers that come through on your email and phone calls. I'm sick to death of them, get them all the time. I had one yesterday. So I abused the hell out of them. Hopefully they'll stop calling for the next few weeks. But yeah. There's a YouTube channel called, I think it's a civil rights lawyer. It's an American one. He takes on civil rights cases where police abuse their powers, and judges and district attorneys. Really good channel. So check that one out. I know it's American. It's not really relevant for us, but it's really interesting to watch the police abuse their powers. Because I was scrolling through YouTube looking for police in Australia abusing people with disabilities, and there was quite a few there, more than I thought there would be, especially the people with autism, which is a a great shame. Yeah, it's really, really sad that we have to live in that environment in today's age where we're very much aware of people's rights and all that sort of thing. So I think Christopher's still trying to get through. Hopefully he doesn't give up.
We've got him in the basement.
Yeah, bring him up.
He's having trouble getting his device is not connected, so I think he's trying to get his microphone and his headphones to connect properly, I think.
Yeah, Christopher, if you can hear me, your headphones are not in correctly. Maybe the mute button's on the headphones, the volume's down or something. You're in the basement there, Christopher, so you're nearly there. You just got to go up and hit enter studio. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm just going to send him a message. He's halfway there.
Yeah, nearly there, Christopher. If you can hear me, you're nearly there. I know it's frustrating. I'm sorry, but yeah.
He's like Schrodinger's cat at the moment.
Yeah, I was watching Pauline Hanson talking about domestic violence against men, and the reaction she got was really quite bad from the other senators in there. It was really quite appalling. Nobody should live in an environment where there's domestic violence, male or female, especially children. And for her to be treated like that, it's just appalling. Those senators are yelling out inappropriate things towards her, hang their head in shame. It was terrible, really bad. If you can hear me, Christopher, just make sure your headphones, your mic and your headphones are turned on. There we go.
We had him for a second and then he's dropped back out again.
Oh, he's probably dropping out, come back in again. Yeah, sorry for the bit of a delay. These things happen. Yeah, there's another YouTube channel you might like to go see. It's Silver Diamond. It's a lady in the US who just has a panel where people come up and talk talk about anything, have a laugh. She does a free giveaway once a week, and she'll send it to you no matter where you are around the world. I actually won a couple of weeks ago. Won a commemorative coin on the Titanic, and a couple of other little things, which was good.
Hello.
Hello. We've got audio but no video.
No video now.
Yeah.
This is great. Okay.
Oh, he dropped out again.
Oh, just try it again, Christopher. You'll get there. Is your webcam? You're right.
I'm having troubles with the cam.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. We can continue if you like.
Yeah, just go, mate. I'll work it out. I'll work it out eventually.
Yeah. So, do you want to start the interview now while you're trying to work that out, or?
Yeah, if you want.
All right. So, yeah. So, how did you get into comedy, and when was it? It was back in the early 90s, was it?
Yeah, it was back in 91 at the Sydney Comedy Store. And my sister was doing comedy, and after I saw her perform, I decided that I wanted to give it a go. So a week later, I was up doing my first 5 minutes.
And it just took off from there. You exploded fairly quickly on the comedy scene, didn't you?
No, I wasn't that quick. It still took me about a year and a half to get to the stage where I got the TV.
Yeah. Because I think that the first time I seen you was on Hey Hey, it's Saturday. Was you on that?
No, well, that I did it, but the first one was the midday program.
Oh, was
with
that?
Ray, with Ray Martin.
Oh, geez, that's going back a way.
Yeah,
Showing their age there.
yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah. So just talk your way through, because you toured overseas, the US with your comedy show.
No, I went over to the US. I did a few showcases, and that's about it. I didn't really tour.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And how did that go? How did they receive you over there?
I went well. It's just, you know, everything's over there is geared differently, so it's really difficult to find someone to represent you properly. Anyway,
Right. Because I know you had a bit of a cult following here. Amongst all my friends with disabilities, they loved your act. Yeah, I was just telling everyone before, I think the best one-liner I've ever heard from you was, you're out one day and you're seeing a really beautiful woman, and you said, I was just standing there looking at her thinking, if she only had a limp.
yeah, that's one of my favourite lines. That
I couldn't stop laughing. I think I had to hold myself so I didn't pee me pants.
yeah, and later on, I added a bit to that. I said, "Oh, it doesn't really matter. They normally do when I'm finished with them anyway."
Yeah, so, and you've been doing comedy, is that your main income now? Comedy?
No, my main income at the moment, I'm on a disability support pension.
Yeah, because I read you had a lot of trouble getting on the DSP and the NDIS.
The NDIS was pretty easy, but the DSP took me 11 months. Apparently I wasn't disabled enough.
I can't believe that. So what did they say? What, you tier 1, tier 2, tier 3?
Mate, I have no idea, but what it said was that because of my work and working with P&O for so long, that because I could access a ship, therefore I could access public transport, therefore I didn't need a DSP.
Oh,
Which made no sense whatsoever. But yeah, I lost a lot of points because I can do a fair bit for myself.
yeah, that's that look, yeah. Yeah, what do you say to that? It's just, I don't know, trying to get people off the welfare system, I suppose, back into work, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, like, I couldn't believe that I lost points because I could feed myself. I could take myself to the toilet. I could transfer from a bed to my chair. I'm in a wheelchair now. So this is the other thing. I was sitting in front of the person in a portable scooter, and she's telling me I didn't qualify.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I, for 11 months, it went in this cycle. And no matter what I said, they couldn't comprehend it. And it took a doctor to do a video conference with me. And as soon as that happened, I got it straight away.
Well, when I first went on the DSP, it was like January 1990, I think. I had to be 85% incapacitated to work. And at that stage, I made that requirement fairly easily. Because I had tumor in the spinal cord, and they told me I wouldn't be able to walk again, but I eventually got there. But to tell somebody with, you have cerebral palsy, don't you?
Yep.
Yep. Tell someone with cerebral palsy in a wheelchair, you're not disabled enough. I mean, I've got friends who are paralysed from the chest down, who drive themselves, transfer from wheelchair to beds to the lounge, and they're still on the DSP.
Yep. Mate, I couldn't believe it. I just, 11 months of it, and I was about to give up, and until I got the interview with the doctor, and it sort of turned around from there.
So much for privacy and confidentiality. So the person who told you that you weren't eligible, what qualifications did they have to say that?
I don't know, because it was a phone call. When I first got rejected, it was a phone call from an unlisted number, and the person only gave me their first name. So I didn't even have any recourse to question that person.
Did you ask what qualifications they had? Because that's one thing I do.
No, I didn't, because mate, to be honest, it happened all so fast, and I was in shock. I was in shock that I actually got knocked back.
I'm surprised I'm surprised you were knocked back.
I think at this time in Australia that a lot of people get knocked back the first time. I think it's just the way they do it.
Well, when I first went on the NDIS, everything I applied for, because I'm blind, tumor spinal cord, MS, osteoporosis, everything I applied for was knocked back for the first 3 years. Everything. Not one thing was allowed. And I ended up taking it right up to the tribunal with the NDIS lawyer.
Yeah.
Which is, when I was diagnosed with a tumour, never suffered with anxiety, contracted MS, didn't suffer with anxiety, lost my sight, no anxiety. NDIS comes along, severe anxiety, and I was like sucking air into my lungs like I was drowning, and I just couldn't cope. So I can understand, how you feel towards being knocked back for the DSP. So how many times did you had to apply for the DSP?
Only the once, because it was ongoing. I only had to fill in the paperwork once, and because I questioned it, and I didn't have to reapply for it.
So all this was done over the phone, no face-to-face meetings other
No
than the video.
No face-to-face, no video, nothing like that until the doctor, and that was 11 months later. And I started getting a little bit frustrated, and my question was to all of them at that time is, how can you actually ascertain what's wrong with a person with a physical disability if you don't actually see them?
Exactly. That's why I asked that question, because it should be a face-to-face meeting.
It should be, but it never is, not even with the NDIS. I mean, when I got my new allotment of money, it wasn't even, I didn't even go in and have a meeting about what I needed or wanted. I just got a standard letter in the mail saying that the meeting we had went really well and this is my new package. I never attended a meeting.
Well, because when I first went on, they actually came to my house with the LACs, and I had all the required documentation, laid it out on the front of her, and I had like personal care stuff there. She was asking what I used, how I used it, why I used it, how many times I used it. And I said to her, I said, what qualifications do you have to ask those questions? And she said, I don't have to answer. That's my private information. I said, you've got to be joking. I've just laid out my whole life in front of you, and you're not going to answer that simple question.
Apparently, they don't have to.
That's wrong.
What's good for the goose isn't necessarily good for the gander.
Exactly. And, how do we hold these people accountable? I'd said on a previous stream that the NDIS, the staff are uneducated and unskilled. And what I mean by that is that they have no real qualifications, no degrees, no skills, by never worked with a person with a disability, never worked in the field, either like a receptionist or, used to work for the tax office, or they used to work for Centrelink. There's no accountability, and it's all inconsistent.
Well, I think there should be an oversight committee. A committee of people with disabilities that know what's going on.
So is that on the federal level, for the whole country, or just?
I think for the whole country, mate, because it's amazing what's coming out. And if you look at it, I notice that there's a lot of apps coming out about the rights of carers and how much they should be getting paid, and support workers and blah, blah, blah. But there's absolutely nothing for the clients. And what's happening is, because there's no oversight at the federal level, that you're getting charlatans that are ripping people off. And I've been ripped off 3 times so far. Paying $600-700 for reports, so I can get more funding, and then I never get the report.
Yeah, that's and they basically tell the government what you've already told them anyway. So they're double dipping and triple dipping to get the information that they want.
I mean, you look at the how much oversight there is with Centrelink and with the ATO when it comes to tax time, but there's no oversight for the NDIS.
Look, yeah, I agree. And every time you raise an issue, they keep saying, "I was like building a plane while you tried to fly it." And I keep saying, "Well, that's good for the people building it and for the pilot, but what about the passengers? You know, all the people with disabilities who aren't getting the funding that they need or being declined funding for certain things." It's just, I agree that there should be an oversight of people with disabilities to make those recommendations back to the government.
I mean, and they're giving funding for the wrong things as well. I mean, I go to the gym 3 times a week, and I train quite hard because I want to get out of this wheelchair to a certain degree and get back on my feet. But now they're changing their minds and not actually giving funding for that, which I don't know why. Because if I was healthier and had a PT coach, it would, in the long run, be costing them less money because I'm actually fitter.
Exactly, 100% correct. I applied for gym membership and I was knocked back, and it was related specifically to a disability. So I sort of went around that and went to an exercise physiologist. And they worked out of a gym. So that's how I got around that issue. So
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah, but I mean, I've been involved with my personal trainer now for nearly 12 months, and I basically I don't want to go with anyone else. She knows my program back to front. So
and you,
what? They're not going to pay for her at the moment because she's a physical trainer.
so is she an exercise physiologist, or is she a
No,
personal trainer?
she's a personal trainer.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's the difference. I mean, you know, if you're a personal trainer, they're now being struck off the NDIS.
Well, if they have the same qualifications as an exercise physiologist, I don't see
It's
why that
all
would
in,
be.
it's all in the wording, mate. Unfortunately.
And exactly right. I had I fell last year, broke my hip and had to have a rod and screws put in. And I had to get a new bed. And because my wife is my carer, I wanted a bed so she could sleep beside me, which got approved. But because they left the S off the word bed, instead of saying beds, it said bed.
Yep.
And I had to go back to the NDIS and say, "You've got to correct this spelling mistake," which they did do. So you're right; it's all in the wording.
Yeah,
So,
it's amazing that just because of you know, a spelling mistake or not knowing the terminology, you just get put to the bottom of the pile.
but it should be what's best for you. What's best for you to get back onto your feet? What's best for you to get back into the community? Not
Well,
what's
well,
best for the government.
well, that's right. I mean, you know, for me, a PT coach is the best way to go at the moment, and I've made great strides in the last night. You know, nearly, well, it's over a year now. I've gone from not being that fit and not being able to do a lot of things to being able to just simple things like I still drive, so I've still got to get myself from the car to the Bowser and into pay, right? For
Yep.
the petrol. And if I'm not fit enough to get my wheelchair and everything out of the boot, then I've got to have a full-time carer. And I
And that
don't,
costs,
yeah, that costs money, and I don't particularly want a full-time carer.
no, I have support workers in the morning, Monday to Thursday, and they have certain duties I ask them to do. I don't want a full-time carer either. Yeah, because
And
I like my privacy, and I think because I've had an issue with privacy and confidentiality with the NDIS for quite a few years, and it's not. It shouldn't be up to the government who decides what the privacy is. It should be me who
it should
decides.
be. And I thought, naively, I thought the NDIS was supposed to make people with disabilities more independent.
Well, that's the aim.
But it's the aim is off at the moment because it's not actually doing that.
I know, and I sent Bill Shorten an email, two emails, asking for a breakdown of the funding of the $30 billion a year. How much goes to support workers and physios and OTs? How much goes to home care, yard maintenance, home improvements, and how much goes to AT for people with disabilities? So it's the NDIS has spawned a new employment system right throughout the whole country. It's not just aimed at people with disabilities anymore. I think it's more aimed at creating employment.
I agree with you, mate. I think it's become a new industry for the government, the federal government, to look better than it actually is.
I think so. I was talking to a lady a couple of weeks ago about people over 65 getting on the NDIS. There's a push for that, but the government are sort of holding back on that as well. So, that's an interesting topic on its own. But I don't know. How do we get the government to pull it back to making people with disabilities making their own choices?
Well, that's a question, isn't it? I mean, apart from self-management, if you can't do self-management, then you're in a precarious position, aren't you?
Oh, exactly. I have a friend who self-manages. I don't. I have trouble getting my head around the wording of different things that I apply for. Like I'm in Armidale in New South Wales, and it gets pretty cold through winter, and I can't even control my heater, which actually blew up a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago. The replacement's like $10,000, and an accessible one is $13,500, and I want to get the $13,500 one. So through winter, because being blind, I suffer with insomnia. So I can be up, 1 o'clock in the morning, wandering around the house doing, making coffee or watching TV or on the computer, and I need to warm the place up. And if I can't use the heater, then it just stays cold. I'm freezing.
Yeah.
So, whether I'll get approved for that $3,500 for an accessible heating system, I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I just don't know how we as people with disabilities can voice our opinion to the federal government to get it back to us making the decisions.
It just seems to me that, since 1981, the International Year of Disabled, nothing really has changed that much. The attitude is still the same.
Yeah,
when it comes to the federal government, because it's still us and them, and you should be happy with what you get.
Yeah, sit in the corner and just be grateful sort
Yeah.
of attitude.
And I'm not the one to sit in the corner. Definitely not.
No, I'm not either. I've got a name for myself around town because I advocate for myself and for other people. So I know as an advocate or an activist or a troublemaker or, all these other things.
The thing is, I know this sounds weird, but if you're able-bodied, you're an activist, and if you're disabled and speaking out, you've got a chip on your shoulder or you're a troublemaker.
Oh, yeah, I've been known as a troublemaker around here for quite a few years. I took my local council to Human Rights Commission because I use a white cane, long cane.
Yep.
And I use the shop fronts as a shoreline, and they have like A-frame signs and display tables, and I kept tripping over things. So I asked them to move them out, and ended up to be like a 10, 11-year battle. I ended up winning. They ended up moving it out, but that set the precedent for me being a troublemaker because I fought so hard and so long to make the CBD accessible for everyone, not just for myself. Even mothers with prams, it's more accessible for them as well. But like you said, if you have a disability and you speak up, you're a troublemaker, or you're a whinger.
Yeah.
And when people do that, it sort of takes the ability away for people to stand up for themselves, to speak their own mind, to advocate on their own behalf. It's not good.
I sometimes I think there's a lot of people that I've been talking to that are scared to say anything about the NDIS or the DSP because they're so scared that they'll get their benefits taken away from them.
Yeah, there is that retaliation fear. I do agree. I've heard other people talk about that in the past. But yeah, I myself, I just don't worry about that, and I just keep pushing through. But when you're told to sit in the corner and just be happy with what you get, it takes away your confidence and your self-respect and your dignity. And able-bodied people don't understand that in the general community.
Well, it's just another way of, I think, also taking away your independence.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I was there this is a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I was walking down the street with someone from Guide Dogs. I was learning how to walk from A to B. And this bloke walked up and said to my O&M instructor, "Oh, I seen him out here last week by himself. Is he allowed out by himself or not?" And she went, "Well, yeah." I went, "Ah, so he's allowed out by himself?" She went, "Yeah." And he just walked off. So we still have that attitude.
Mate, I was at a cafe in one of the shopping malls with a friend of mine, and who's able-bodied, and they assumed that she was my carer, and they looked at her and said, "What does he want for lunch?" And she just looked at me. You will bloody ask him.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a tongue. He can talk. He's got an IQ. Talk to him.
Yeah, that's happened to me once or twice over the years. Yeah. And that's one of my pet peeves is talking to the person I'm with, not to me. When I've got the one with the money, I'm the one that's spending the money in your store. You talk to me.
And she wasn't even a carer. She's my mate that I'm having lunch with.
I'm sorry for laughing. I'm just laughing because I've been through it myself.
Yeah, I know. I mean, looking back, it's funny, but at the time, it wasn't that funny.
No,
Yeah, go on.
it pisses you right off. It does for me anyway. It's I get a bit snappy at times when that happens.
Yeah, I actually, I didn't mean to, but I once I made someone cry.
I did.
Yeah.
What happened to you? Just had
Okay,
enough?
so what happened was that at the local shopping centre, there was a stand in the middle, as they normally have. And on this particular day, the stand was for a new company starting up in the area that I live in for carers, you know, the personal carers and blah, blah, blah. And they come to your house and everything. And I was having a great conversation with her and everything was going fine. And then my mother and my sister turned up. And as soon as they turned up, she stopped talking to me and started talking to them. And so basically I snapped and I had a few unkind words for her. I said, you know, and I made her cry. You know,
Yeah.
not
Look.
one of my finest moments, but you know, I just had enough.
Oh, look, I understand. I went to a well-known. It's a national store, and I was talking to the bloke about a computer program, and he walked off. And being blind, I'm still talking about this program, what it does, and what I need. And my wife walked up and said, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "I just talked to the salesman. Just hang on a sec." She said, "There's no one there." Anyway, he's
Serious.
come. Yeah, so he's come back, and he did it 2 more times. So on the way home, I said to my wife, I said, "I'm going to ring the manager up and say something." So I rang the manager and I told him what happened. And I said, all the bloke had to say was, "Just hang on a sec. I'll go check. I'll be back in a minute." And the manager said verbatim, "Well, let's face it, people like us don't like talking to people like you."
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, so I never
Man.
went to that store in 20 years, but I had to go back because I needed something. But new management and the staff there now are quite good. So, but yeah, look, not good. But I had an experience last week. I went into another store and a young girl, she said, she talked to me. She told me her name. She told me when she was walking away and said, "Oh, it's Amy coming back." And it was a really good experience. So I rang up corporate head office and I said, "Oh, look, went into the store here in Armidale last week, had this interaction with a young lady, Amy. Brilliant. She done really well as a person who's blind. Really good interaction." I said, "I think she needs a pat in the back." She said, "Oh, we'll send the manager an email." I said, "No, no, 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 no. No, I think corporate needs to actually ring her and tell her job well done." "Oh, well, he doesn't make calls." And I said, "Well, he needs to do it." Anyway, she said, "Oh, well, I'll let him know." And I hung up and I turned around to the support worker and I said, Well, that was enthusiastic, wasn't it? And she said, yeah, she sounded like she was half asleep. So when you do ring up and say, job well done, they don't appreciate it anyway.
I just think that's a sign of the times.
I don't know. I thought they would have been a bit appreciative of me making the effort to ring up and saying, job well done, but she just didn't care.
Maybe they don't know people ringing up saying job well done, so they don't know what to do.
Probably. But yeah, look, I'm always the first one to put my hand up to complain, but I'm also one of the first ones to put my hand up and say job well done. And I think we've got to do that to let people know what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, if I don't put my hand up either way, then no one else is going to do it for me. That's what I've learned. You know, if I've got to, you know, I've had advocates and blah, blah, blah throughout my life speaking for me. And as I said, at the end of the day, I get more done when I do it.
Yeah, but there's some people who for whatever reason can't speak up for themselves, and that's why I do what I do. You know, speaking up for other people, but you know, and it's those people who don't have that ability to speak up for whatever reason, that those of us who can need to do it more often.
I agree with that, definitely.
Yeah.
You know,
So when you got on the DSP, did they actually backdate the pension to when you first applied?
yeah, they did not all of it, but about 90% of it. So that was pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
And now after being on it for nearly, I think, a year and a bit, I'm sort of at the point where I really want to get back to work, you know, and live my own financial life again.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah.
You know, it's a mess what you can earn and what you can't earn and blah 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 while you're on the DSP.
And I think that's one of the issues too, that people who could go back to work don't, because like the healthcare card that you get with the DSP, if you're on a lot of medications, that's, you know, a huge financial benefit. And to going back to work, you lose all that. But if that safety net was still there, I think more people would go back to work.
Yeah, I just think that you should be, you know, like if I earn above what I get per year on DSP, above that I should be taxed or do something like that. I'm not asking for a free ride, you know, but just a bit of an allowance.
Bit of
An
assistance to keep the basic lifestyle.
Well, an incentive.
Yeah.
There's no incentive for, as you said, for people to go back to work because they'll never get in front because they garnish the DSP as soon as you start working again.
Well, I never got the full DSP because my wife was working, and I didn't mind that, so I only got a half pension and a healthcare card because I take a lot of medication. And I did look for work for the first, I don't know, 15 years. When I went for an interview, you could have heard a pin drop, you know, because I walked in with a white cane and, you know, their way of getting out of employing someone who's blind is, oh, you need your driver's license. Well, yeah, not really, but anyway. But yeah, I think for people who could go back to work who are on the DSP, losing that security if their health does go bad, then they don't have to reapply for the DSP and go through the whole thing again like you had to go through for that 11 months.
Yeah, maybe just have it can be put on hold and you don't get any benefits or whatever. But as you said, if it does go south again, it can be just started up straight away.
I think so. And the NDIS is supposed to help people get back into work too. That's one of their goals.
Mate, sitting in front of the NDIS people and saying, I'm 54 years old and I'm a stand-up comic. What job have you got for me?
Yeah, stand-up comic sitting down in a wheelchair. Yeah,
that's right. They've got, forget it. They got no idea whatsoever. And when it comes to the entertainment field, mate, stand-up comics aren't even recognised. You know, when I'm filling in all my forms that I had to do, not once does it say, comedian stroke stand-up comic. It says performing arts.
oh, there you go.
I mean, it's only a small thing, but you think after stand-up comedy has been around in this country for at least 30 years, you'd think it would actually appear on the paperwork when you're out of work or you need help.
Well, there's a lot of stand-up comics around now. One of the ones I subscribe to on YouTube is Isaac Butterfield. You ever heard of him?
Yeah, I have heard of him,
yeah. He's funny. He does a lot of good content on YouTube. I agree with 90% of the stuff he says, and he's funny as well. But look, the NDIS, the goal of the NDIS is getting people's independence back, getting them back into the community and its activities, and getting them back into work. And they're not doing it.
And like this has taken us right back around to the oversight committee.
Yeah.
And this should be one of the jobs of an oversight committee, making sure that their goals are being met.
So if there is an oversight committee, should they be elected or appointed by the government?
I think they should be elected.
I think so too. I agree.
I think that to be a committee member, you either have to have a disability or credentials in the disability field. Not just someone who goes, oh, that's a good idea and it's an easy paycheck.
Yeah. Because when I first went on the NDIS, in the first 18 months, I had 6 different LACs. Now, I live in a country town, so all those LACs had all my information, 6 of them. That's not including the people in the NDIS, the services that I access. So, all my personal private information, is out. And that's one thing I think is wrong with the NDIS. If I say to the government, you can't have that information, it's private and confidential, it should remain that way. And the doctor should then say, yes, he needs, X amount per year for personal care allowance. That should be it, not to have it all itemised. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, the information that's been given out is unbelievable. And it's always been that way.
And we all know how
Does
much.
does that make sense? Though it's always when you've got a disability, it seems that your information is given out more freely than if you're able-bodied.
Exactly. 100% correct. I agree with you, Chris. It's something that I feel that needs to be addressed. It's I'm not happy with all my personal private information being out, and we all know, like Medicare and Optus and all that being hacked lately. So it won't be long before the NDIS is hacked.
I probably have already, and we don't know about it.
Yeah. Oh well, the Chinese government's probably got all our information. But so the oversight committee, how many people do you reckon should be on it? A dozen? How many people should all disabilities be catered for, or it doesn't matter so long as the person with a disability is up there?
As long as a person with a disability is up there and is giving a fair shake to all disabilities, it's no good having someone with, say, for instance, myself, with cerebral palsy, just looking after people with cerebral palsy. I've got to take, if I'm a member of that oversight committee, I've got to look at the big picture and look at all disabilities.
I agree. It's like me going up and only looking after people who are blind or vision impaired. Should they be a volunteer or paid, do you think, if there was an oversight committee?
I think it should be paid. Definitely should be paid.
Should they get the same amount as the ministers?
Why not? They should. They probably should get more because they'll actually do something.
I think so. Yeah. The ministers, they push out, we've got to make sure we're responsible and, we adhere to all these different criteria. And when they do that, then they overlook the goals of the NDIS. When they're trying to put out all these different policies and procedures and key points of interest, it overlooks the person with the disability.
Yeah, when you're trying to bend over backwards to keep everyone happy, you don't actually do anything.
No.
You can't appease everyone, right? All you can do is give everyone a fair shake and equal opportunities and equal rights, no matter who they are.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've raised before is that some service organisations bring on too many clients and they don't have the infrastructure to support them, so the clients that they do have suffer.
Yeah, because this is one of the problems, but because they're getting, let's face it, they're getting a kickback for every person that they bring on. So financially or tax-wise or whatever it is, So they're going to bring on as many clients as they can to increase that kickback. The thing is that in that scenario, the individuals have, as you said, have forgot about, and what they need goes by the wayside.
Yeah, I lodged a complaint with the NDIS Complaints Commission against a service organisation, for doing exactly that. They had way too many clients, and the new ones that come in, they didn't have the infrastructure, and that affected the people who'd been with that organisation for a long time, had their supports cut or their services interfered with, because they're bringing new clients on chasing that dollar.
Now, over the last couple of years since Corona raised its ugly head and blah, 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 the big buzzword or catchphrase has been mental health, right?
Yep.
Now, if you're in that scenario where your budget's been cut, your time has been cut, and all of that stuff, then that's going to contribute to your deterioration of your mental health. So
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah,
it's all tied in together. So like these people don't understand that it's not just, you're not just taking away services of people, you're actually contributing to the decline of their mental health.
yeah, you're placing people who are already vulnerable in a situation where, that's going to increase more. They're going to be more vulnerable, whether it's their mental health or physical health. You can't treat people who are vulnerable the way that has been over the last few years without some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Repercussions for the individual and for the organisation.
That's right.
Because it's just like a domino effect.
Yes, it is, and again, you get back to the oversight committee, which this would be all part of it. It would have to be part of it. The mental health issues and so on, the physical issues would all have to be part of what this committee does.
Well, it's such a broad area that the knowledge of the people in that oversight committee is going to have to be quite expansive. They're going to have to cover a lot of areas.
They will. I mean, maybe it's more than 12 members. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe there's a few subcommittees as well.
Well, I think like if you had a few members who looked at mental health, had a few members that looked at the different issues that are being raised by people with disabilities, and then the oversight committee can then discuss those topics that those individuals raise. The oversight committee members raise. Like if you was on there and you were part of the group that look after mental health, then when that oversight committee then meets, then you would put your findings forward and make decisions on those findings.
Yep. I mean, it makes sense to me. It's logical to you and me. So why isn't it being done now?
Well, they don't have a disability, but I'm quite happy to give them a disability. Just give me a golf club or something. We could nobble a few.
Sometimes I understand why there's strict gun laws in this country.
I think they're too strict at times. Yeah. Oh, look, it's yeah. You raise a lot of good issues, Chris, and a lot of what you said makes a lot of sense. To those of us who have similar issues, it's I don't understand why the government can't get their head around it.
I just think they don't want to. They're hoping it'll just go away.
No, and I won't. Not with people standing up and,
That's right.
speaking out like the NDIS is a privilege. It's not a right. Prior to the NDIS, I just sat around the home all day, every day, did nothing. But since I've been on the NDIS and I had a coordinator support, I've been getting back out in the community. It's been really good. So the NDIS has been great, but it's it's not being run properly.
No, definitely not.
So yeah, I don't know if there's anybody in chat who's has a question.
No, we don't have anyone else in the chat at the moment.
Okay. Bit surprising, but anyway, hopefully they'll watch it later, which would be good.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of an audience, but we don't. Just people who are happy watching the show.
Yeah. How many audience are you reaching?
It's only a fairly new channel. We've only been going a few weeks, so I don't know how many are in at the moment. You don't, Chris?
I think we've had a few dozen people come through so far.
Yeah, but that's good. If you've only been going a few weeks, that's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I started this because I just wanted people with disabilities to have a platform to come up and talk about things that affect them, express their views and opinions, and talk about their life experiences, in a safe environment where they're treated with respect.
Well, it's definitely needed.
Yeah, because there's nowhere that that's why I started the channel. Is that there's nowhere people can come up and actually talk about issues that are affecting them, not necessarily about the NDIS. Could be anything.
Yeah.
It's up to the individual, but yeah, at least we're getting a few people in watching for a while anyway. But hopefully we've spoke about a few things that can get other people thinking about what you said, like raising an oversight committee and your struggles getting on the DSP, how you work your way through it. That may help somebody who's actually going through it as well.
Yeah, and to let them know that they're not actually alone.
No, well, there's, I think, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, there's about 18% of the population has a disability to where they need assistance.
Okay.
And you combine that with the aging population, you're looking at what, nearly 40% of the population.
Mate, we'll run the world one day.
What was that?
I said the disabled people will run the world one day at that rate.
Oh, I hope so. It's like that Greta, what's her name? The climate activist, Greta Thunberg or Bloomberg or whatever her name is. She has autism, and she's been able to speak out fairly well. She's quite articulate. Don't know if you've seen her.
No, I haven't seen her, mate.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So you live in Brisbane?
No, I'm up at Gympie, just past Gympie in a little place called Glenwood.
Okay.
So I'm about 2.5 hours from Brisbane, north.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I was saying before you come up, my family were actually from Gargett, just outside of Mackay, and they moved down to Sydney during the Second World War, and they just stayed. So
Right.
that's how we got to New South Wales. But there's another bloke has his YouTube channel, Gregory Lawyer.
Okay.
We have a rivalry about Queensland and New South Wales. We take the mickey out of each other all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, well, I was actually from New South Wales.
we're
Little place called Clovelly. I'm in the eastern suburbs of Sydney.
okay.
So I was a beach boy for years and years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I grew up in Clovelly Surf Club. So that's where I spent most of my young years.
Yeah, I was born in Sydney at Bulli Hospital,
Right,
Campsie. And we moved up this way when I was about 7 or 8 or something like that. We used to live in Villawood before we moved up here.
My ex-wife's from Villawood.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to live Coonaroy Street or Coonawarra Street or something. I can't remember. It's like 50 odd years ago now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you for coming today, Chris. I really do appreciate your time.
That's good. I'm glad we finally got there.
Yeah, it took you a while to come up and dropped out. Come up and dropped out. Come back up.
Mate, I'm not bad, but I don't do much of the streaming stuff, so I'm not sort of au fait with it at the moment.
Yeah, I go on to other people's streamings all over the world, America and the UK mainly, but been up in Canada as well. It's good fun. It's good fun. There's a lot of trolls out there though. Nasty people who have nothing better just to sit there and belittle and berate people.
I mean, I've had trolls all my life. It is what it is.
So what was the reaction like when you first came out and started doing your comedy routine? Did you get much backlash?
Oh, not in Australia, probably more so when I went to the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the anti-discrimination bill hadn't been passed for that long in 92? No, 94. 94. So it was still relatively new over there. So I had quite a few people not liking me. But I had a lot that did, so it worked out in the end, you know.
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't know anyone I knew that didn't appreciate your humour. You certainly told a few home truths.
I still do, mate. I just do it with less profanity.
Yeah, I know. You had to, a couple of times you're on TV, you had to start to say something and you stopped and changed it. I don't think you had to come out with a few words.
Yeah, well, you think better of it sometimes and you go, oh, no, better not do that.
Yeah, like I said, been a huge fan of yours for a very long time. I love your humour. Broke down a lot of barriers. That people have, with disabilities have a humour, can look on the funny side of things.
Well, if you can't look at the funny side of things, then there's something wrong with you, I reckon.
Exactly. I mean, the things I've done since I've lost my sight. First time I went downtown by myself. I was sitting at a taxi rank and there's a wooden bench, and this bloke there's someone come up and sat down beside me, and he said, "How you going?" Because we live in a country town, everyone knows everyone. I said, "Oh, not bad, mate. How's yourself?" And he said, "Oh, what have you been up to?" I said, "Oh, just done a bit of shopping and just waiting for a taxi." This bloke stands up and says, "Yeah, hang on a sec. This bloke beside me thinks I'm talking to him." Yeah, so, another time I went, had coffee, and always get coffee in a cup. Always have coffee in a cup, not a mug.
Yeah.
And I asked for a coffee in a cup, and I put my hands out and grabbed the bottom of the cup, and the handle was quite low. So I brought
Yeah.
it up to my mouth, and it was quite high. It was like narrow, but quite high. So I put it up to my mouth, and I pulled it away, and had this big blob of foam sitting on the end of my nose like a big red clown nose, but white. You got to laugh at yourself.
Oh, you do, mate.
Yeah, if you don't,
We have a laugh every day.
it just makes life hard if you can't laugh
Oh
at
well,
yourself.
there's 3 or 4 of us that go to the gym, so we normally after the gym have a coffee and whatever, and just have a laugh about life in general.
Yeah, sitting there laughing at able-bodied people,
Yeah.
make fun of them, see how they like it.
Well, some of them, my mates that I go to gym with are actually able-bodied, so it makes it fun.
I seen this thing on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. There was this woman, she used to go to a gym, and she used to wear those Daisy Dukes, the shorts that shows half her ass cheeks.
Yeah.
And she'd be doing these squats, and she'd have a camera doing a live stream, her doing squats, and she's looking over her shoulder, and she looked up, and there's this bloke looking at her. So she stormed over there, and she's yelling, "You can't look at me while I'm doing that. It's disgusting. You're a pervert." And the bloke went, "No, actually, I'm blind. I can't see a thing." And she said, "No, I don't care. I'm going to get the manager." And she went and got the manager, and he came over, and he said, "Oh, you can't be looking at her." He said, "Well, I'm not. I'm blind." He said, "I'm just facing her general direction." But she should have seen her. She was screaming absolute obscenities. But this bloke just kept doing his workout facing her direction. He didn't care.
What part of blind don't you understand, woman?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the amount of times I've got to explain the difference between being blind and vision impaired, it's, I applied for a talking microwave oven, and a lady rang up for the NDIS, said, "Oh, you can't have it." And I said, "Well, why?" And she said, "Well, we've got staff here who are vision impaired, and they don't like the voice, and their family members don't like the voice, so you can't have it." I said, "Well, what's that got to do with me? That's them." And I said, "I'm not vision impaired, I'm blind." And I said, she went to say something. I said, "Hang on, do you know the difference between being blind or vision impaired?" And she was stumped. She had no answer. She didn't know the difference. So,
And
what do you do?
these other people saying yes and no to us.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why they need to be educated. That's why we need to have people in there who have worked in the disability field at least to have
Yeah.
a little bit of understanding and appreciation. But look, loved your humour for a long, long time, and you're going to go back to touring at any time?
Yeah, I'm actually in a musical duo with a mate of mine, and we're called the Jingo Brothers. And we've been, we've just done a few gigs, and we're doing the Fringe Festival next year in
Okay.
Adelaide. And then we're going on tour for a while.
Oh, well, you'll have to put up your dates and everything on your Facebook page and where you be, and
Yeah, we will when we finalise all the dates. That'll be up on the Jingo Brothers page. We've got a
Okay.
whole page on Facebook dedicated to it.
Okay, so Jingo Brothers.
Yeah.
Is it JINGO?
Yep.
Okay. Then we'll get everyone to go and have a look at that on Facebook and get your tour dates. But yeah, I think, I don't know. Do you want to have anything else you want to say, Chris? Or
Nah, mate, I think I've covered most of it.
I think we've done a fair bit this morning.
Yeah.
It was really good. But yeah, next year, early next year, I've got a few things planned. Yeah, with the NDIS and sex workers and all that sort of thing next year.
Excellent. I'll tune into that one.
Yeah, $1.99 a minute. But yes, and we're going to talk about parents with parenting with disabilities.
Yep.
There's a lady who did a special on the ABC. I'm lining her up for next year to come and talk about it. So yeah, we're going to cover a few topics. So, but you know, maybe you can come back at another time. We can talk about other things.
Yeah, mate. Whenever you want. You know, I'm pretty cruisy.
Yeah, except for Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays I'm at the gym.
Okay.
Yeah, so
yeah. All right.
Well, good to talk to you.
Well, I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. Yeah, big fan, like I said. But I appreciate you coming today. It's been good to talk to you and get your story on getting on the DSP, and it's been interesting.
Yeah, it's been good.
All right, well, thank you for that, Chris. I appreciate your time.
No worries, Jeff.
Okay, mate. I'll talk to you later.
All right, mate. See ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, everyone, that's probably the stream for today. Thank you for coming. If you want to leave a comment in the comment section, please do. I will read them. Or send me an email at blindadvocate007@gmail.com. Okay, thanks, everyone.